Servolution, where we show the love of Jesus to our city by partnering together to start a revolution through serving.
Hey, we're glad that you're here. We are glad that you're here. We are in week 4 of Servolution. Everyone say Servolution. If you go and look in the dictionary, that is not a real word. That is a word that has been creative. It's the combination of serving and revolution, trying to create a revolution through simple acts of kindness, sharing simple acts of kindness to share the gospel. So this week, we're going to jump in here. We're going to look at how Jesus turned the culture upside down by serving. In your homes, do you guys ever have like little jobs that everybody in your family unit does? Like here's what I can think of in our home. Like I can think of like after dinner or for dinner, there's jobs that everybody has. You know, somebody's going to do the shopping, someone's going to do the cooking, someone's going to do actually, this is all Julie. You don't want me shopping. Like when I shop, I'm not a good shopper because like I'll go with a list and I'll come home with like, it sounded good. But no, when we get ready for dinner, people have jobs. I love to help cook. And then, so Julie will cook and I'll come over and critique cooking and then like, hey, we need to add some of this. We need to put bacon in it. You don't ever put enough bacon in it. So I do that. But then our kids will set the table. You know, Libby will set something like the plates and then Bella will put out the silverware. Gabby just kind of looks cute right now. But we, hey, Gabby, can you carry the butter over? Things like that. But everyone's got a job. Or like when someone's coming over to the house, when you have company, then everyone's got their jobs. Like mom is like, kids, all right, you go clean your rooms. And then they debate about it, like why they don't have to clean it. They can do it later. We can just shut the door, play downstairs. Kids, go clean your rooms. We got to vacuum. Someone's got to put dishes away. All the little piles that are around the house. You know, like the piles, like find a closet that isn't full already and close them. Like, anybody do this? I do this. Like you get to the closet and then like you get everything just kind of balanced there. And then like you shut the door real fast and hope like nothing. So if you go to my house, you'll probably see lots of doors with like things creeping out underneath them. And do not touch a door that is not the bathroom or a bed. Like, don't touch a closet in my house because it's just going to throw up on you. But everyone has their job. And I know for my wife, I don't know about in your home, but my wife, and when everyone does their job, when the house is the way it's supposed to be, it creates harmony in our home. Like, when the house isn't as it's supposed to be, my wife won't sit, she won't enjoy, she'll clean while you're there, she won't sit down, like she's just a little busy bee, just won't sit. So, but if someone doesn't do their job, their portion, it creates stress on someone else, or there's no harmony. And the church is very similar, the same way. As we look at the church, it's kind of like a beehive. Everyone has a job. And bees are fascinating animals. I just learned this. Anyone ever like study bees and honey make? Like, it's amazing. There will be bees that their only job is to go to a water source and get water. And they'll fly down and they'll pick up one little tiny drop of water and they'll fly that water back to the hive. They'll drop that water off. And then there will be another bee that their job is just to fan their wings and they will blow the water that cools the hive. They've made air conditioning. And that one little bee that does part of the water service, he goes back to the water, gets another drop of water and does it. And that's his job. And then somebody else is there fanning that water. And that's their job. That's the process of making honey. But if that bee doesn't go and get that water, it shuts down the operation. If that one bee that was fanning if the guy that's fanning the water, he's like, well, I want to be a water getter. I want to make the honey. If he doesn't do his job, no one has honey. If he doesn't do his job of getting the water, no one has honey. And so, I don't know if there's like bee hierarchy besides like the queen. They're like, all the cool guys make honey. I'm just a water getter. But it's the thing, though, of the deal is to make honey. But in order for that to happen, everyone has to do their jobs. But if someone goes rogue, it makes everything collapse. It goes MIA. We all have to pitch in and do our job. It's just part of it. Church is the exact same way. Someone here today had to create that screen for you to look at. Those pretty little arrows and the little animation of the chronograph, whatever that is. Like someone had to create that. The chairs that you're sitting in today, look in front of you. You see the envelopes and the guest card? Someone printed those. Not only did someone print them, but someone came and put them in that chair. See the row that you're sitting in? Look to your left, look to your right. When you started today, that row was straight. If it's not straight, that's your fault, not ours. But somebody had to straighten those chairs. In fact, some of the chairs were missing. If you look over there, right by Tracy, look, Tracy, raise your hand. She is standing up, folks. She is standing up. No. I'm kidding, kind of. But right behind there, just last Sunday, there was a print of my butt in that wall. Believe it or not, it's been here since we started. I was, in the beginning of, we were painting the church, and I don't even know how it happened, but like, someone was up here, we were talking about handstands, and I was like, I can do a handstand. And so I attempted to do a handstand unsuccessfully, and I put my butt through that wall. And so Wayne Vance fixed my butthole. Wayne Vance fixed the hole that my butt created over there. So if you see Wayne, just call him the proctologist. Anyway, but someone had to fix it. That's where I was going with that. There was a hole in that wall, and someone had to fix it. There was a hole in the kids' room this week that somebody made. I don't know, but someone had to fix that. These floors were dirty yesterday. Someone had to sweep it. How many of you have a bottle of water in your hands right now? How many of you have a bottle of water in your hands? Do you know someone had to go to Sam's and pick that up? Someone had to fill the fridge and put those in the fridge. Someone had to set them out so that you could have water. It's crazy. Isn't that funny how that happened? How many have coffee? Anybody get coffee today? Was it too strong? Jeff did it. Jeff did it. Jeff covered for his dad today. But anyway, someone had to come early and create coffee for you. I mean, the cones that were put outside this morning for parking, the signs that were, just everything. If you walked in the nursery, somebody had to do that. So my whole point in this is it's like a beehive. There's jobs that have to be done. It's just the necessity of having church. It's the necessity of having church. And you may look at that and be like, well, that's not serving. But it is. It is. It's a necessity of having this church. Because I can promise you would not like it if we didn't have people that didn't do those things. If you walked in, like if today, you leave here today and we don't touch anything till next Sunday when you come back to church, we could have that experiment, but you're not going to like it. You're not, because the youth will be in here Wednesday night, and then it's really not going to look like this, all right? Which is cool. But if we just leave it, like, you should ask some of the blessing of the cleaning team. Who's on the cleaning team here at the church? Raise your hand. 1. We've got 1. 2. I see some. 3. They're all around, just sprinkled in there. Give these guys a hand. God bless them. I was here last night, and they were here last night when I was finishing something up, and I was just thinking about, what they do. They come in here when no one else is here. It was funny because one of the rooms was a mess, and I was like, uh-oh. Because she's like, good Lord, have you seen that room? That was your kids, not mine. Well, mine were probably in there too. But I'm just saying the point of what they do, the hearts of what people do here. And you know what? Probably one of the least glamorous jobs is cleaning the bathroom. But somebody says, I'll do it. It's not a glamorous job to stand out on the street and wave people that are going by that aren't coming to church. But someone says, I'll do it. It's not a glamorous job to go to Sam's every week and pick up water and pick up coffee and pick up supplies. But someone says, I'll do it. That's kind of like that bee that goes and gets the water so that there can be honey. The honey is the gospel. The honey is the gospel. That's why we do what we do. For the gospel to be shared, for the gospel to be spread, someone's got to go get the water. Someone's got to fan the water. Someone has to do those things. It's just a necessity of church. So we're going to start with a section of the Bible written by a guy named Paul today. Paul was a church planner. We can identify with him as a church planner. He would set up church, equip leaders, lead it, and then move on and repeat the process. So Paul was put in charge of spreading the gospel. And he would go to a city and he would set up a church, and not just set up a church and then leave it. He wasn't a traveling evangelist. He would set up a church and he would equip people to lead that church. He would equip them so that when he left, there were people that were replicating him that could share the gospel in the way that God had empowered him to do so. Then he would go on to a new city and repeat that and repeat that and repeat that. Paul understood how a church was to function. And there's a lot of the New Testament that's simply letters that Paul is writing back to churches about how a church is to function. And we're going to talk about that just a little bit this morning. Right here, we can read about a letter that he was writing to a church that he had planted in a town called Ephesus. Ephesus is in modern-day Turkey. It's just up the coast from what's Istanbul. In Ephesus, he had set up a church, and he was writing this letter to them about how a church should work. And in his letter to the Ephesians, those that lived in Ephesus, you look at these, there's so many weird names. You know, in Ephesus, you had the Ephesians. In Philippi, you had the Philippians. In Thessalonica, you had the Thessalonians. In Battlestar Galactica, you had the Galatians. That's a bad joke. But if we look here in Ephesians, Paul writes to those in Ephesus, chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. He says right here in verse 11, "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers." So Christ himself gave gifts to the church. Talks about how he gives us individually gifts. We've been talking about that these last few weeks, that we have gifts. And I shared about the test that you could take online to find out what your spiritual gifts were, how to figure those things out so you could think about, where should I be serving? Where has God gifted me? Well, he left to the church right here, the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers. These were his gifts. Paul is stating the gifts that God gave to the church, and these are the offices that he shares for the church. Here, my job is I'm a teacher. I'm a pastor. I'm a pastor. I am someone that leads. He goes on here in verse 12. He gives these people to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. He gives these people so that the body of Christ may be built up. And so we look at what we are called. Some of us here, believe it or not, we're apostles. We talked about this. We're priests. We're prophets. We're evangelists. We're teachers, all for one goal, so that people may be what? Built up. So that people may be built up. So as we look in verse 13, until we reach unity in faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. So here's the thing that we're trying to do is raise up disciples. Raise up disciples, and all of these people together create that. And that's what's so cool about this. It's not just Shane that stands on the stage and looks at that and says, you know what? If Shane would do a better job, we'd have some disciples. If Shane would do a better job, it's the unit. It's us together. That's my job to lead it, empower people, but it's all of us together. We're like a big hive. We're like a big hive, a unit together. So me, today, teachers and pastors are in essence coaches. So I'll start today. The role of a pastor, coaches. Coaches. Anybody out there know who Andy Reid is? Anybody out there admit that they're a Chiefs fan? Okay, someone else raised their hand, so I can now too. I am a Chiefs fan. And as a coach, Andy Reid coaches the Chiefs. His job is to coach, to prepare them, to lead them. But you know what Andy Reid will not do this season? Suit up. Anybody even know who Andy Reid is? Look, right here. I think we got a picture of Andy Reid right here. This is my job as coach, and this is, do you know which one's which? Man, that's a good look. Don't you think I should get a mustache again? Thanks, Mom. Anyway, Andy Reid. Andy Reid will not play it down this entire season. He won't suit up. He won't run a play. He won't catch a ball. He won't throw a ball. He won't kick a field goal. He will never suit up this year because that's not what he's paid to do. He used to play. He may have been a great football player, but he doesn't anymore. Not anymore. He has a one-fold mission. You can take the picture down now. That's I lost my train of thought with that. He has a one-fold mission now, to find the right players, put them in the right position, and then to empower them, and motivate them to be the best that they can be. So we all know how valuable a coach is. how valuable a coach is. You know, I can look through the history of sports and see what a great coach does. You know, I think we can all locally look here and see, you know, you can go to Pitt State, a great coach. Go to Webb City, a great coach. You can go around and see great coaches. I bet you that little baseball team right now, the Webb City baseball team that's going to Williamsport, how cool is that? Yeah. I just found out I have a little cousin on that team. Pretty excited about that. I feel bad because I did not know. But with those kids, probably have a great coach. They probably have a great coach. But that's what he does. He empowers those to be the best that they can be. And so we understand that the role of a coach is huge. And there are awesomely talented teams. We've seen this too. Have you ever seen one of these amazingly talented teams, full of talent, full of potential, that doesn't succeed because they don't have a great coach? And you've seen just the opposite. Anybody right now, this is something that maybe you don't understand, but I'll talk. Anybody right now see like the San Antonio Spurs? San Antonio Spurs are not full of a bunch of big name players. They're not full of a bunch of like the number one draft picks. They're not full of a bunch of high profile players, but they're absolutely amazing. Golden State. Where's Golden State? They have a couple of good players, but they play as a team. They've got a great coach, especially San Antonio. They have a great coach that has learned how to get the best out of his players. And that's what's amazing is when you see what a coach can do. But we're going to keep moving forward here because beyond the role of the coach, there's something else. The role of pastors is to help people find out what their place is on the team and then do what they do really well. But then you also have the people. Do you know what the role of the people is? So you have the pastor, that's the coach. What's the role of the people? Players. 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 Put me in, coach. I used to play sports back in the day. But as a coach, my job now is to mobilize. My job now is to mobilize you. How many of you know this answer? I'm going to show you a little quiz here, give you a little quiz. Put that up there. The average church in America has blank attenders each week. 25, 75, 125, or 175. What's your guess? What's your guess? What do you think that the average church in America has attending each week? This is a study by Duke. How many of you say 25? A. All right, got a few people out there. How many of you say B, 75? Got a lot of folks for that one. How many of you say C, 125? Got a few for that one. How many of you say D, 175? All right, that one is going to be knocked off the board because no one said that one. The answer is B, 75. The average church in America today, according to Duke, is 75 people. 75. I wish that the average church was 175 at least, but 75 folks. Do you know why that they stated the average church was 75 people? What they attributed that to? Because supposedly that's what one pastor can handle. It's what they can maintain. It's what they can care for, adequately care for. Because often in the church, people have this attitude. In most churches, you know who does the shopping? The pastor. You know who does the cleaning? The pastor. You know who does the printing? The pastor. And so you go through, it's usually the pastor that does all those things, that does all the preparation, that does all the planning, that does, the pastor. Because the attitude in a lot of churches in America, and I'm not saying this to this, but I'm just sharing the statistic. The attitude of a lot of churches in America is, that's what he's paid to do. That's what he is paid to do. So what if they just look, you can attribute that in so many different things. What if we put that same, what if you did that in a firehouse? Well, this fire department can only care for 75 homes because only the chief fights fires. What if a school, only the principal? This school can only teach 75 children, even though there's 400 of them. Can only adequately teach 75 because that's what she's paid to do. So that's what they attributed that to. But looking at this, pastors, they do the weddings, they do the funerals, they do the printings, the greeting, the cleaning, the ushering, the preaching, and do all of that because that's the mindset of a lot of people. We don't because you do. Here, though, we have a different culture. But what if we as pastors, myself, could mobilize every member of the church, to serve? And that's what I look at here, because there is something, that's my goal every week, is that everybody would serve in some capacity. And I'm not just talking about in this building, but that we would serve in some capacity every week. Because you know what I would love us to do? I would love us to yield a lot of honey. That's the win. That is the win. So let's go through here a little bit more. Have you ever been a part of something that's growing? Have you ever been a part of something that's growing, maybe a family? Anyone been a part of a growing family? Yeah. I've got 3 daughters, and I'm begging for that family to grow a little bit more as my wife doesn't look at me, and she just ignores me. Or maybe a business. You ever been a part of a business that's growing, or a church that's growing, or just something? Growing comes with this, challenges. Growing comes with challenges. And with challenges bring something called change. And guess what most people do not like? Change. You can keep the change. You can keep the change. But if we have a biblical look at this, when we take a biblical look at this, we can see an example. Let's look at the book of Acts. The first church, it grew rapidly and it faced growing challenges. Growth creates challenges like change, and people don't like change. So Acts 6, 1 through 4. Verse 6, in those days, the number of disciples was increasing. They were growing. They were raising up disciples. And the Hellenistic Jews among them complained against the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. So as this church is growing, more are being added to the table and more are being added to the table. And all of a sudden, there's this thing. People feel like they're being discriminated against. Well, because that happens. People will look at that and go, well, wait a second. Those people were here before me. And then I come to the table, well, they're all chummy with each other, and then I come, now we're being discriminated against. And so they felt like their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. So today, we're not just distributing food every day, and we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. They said, if we go into verse 2, so the 12 gathered all the disciples together and said, it would not be right for us to neglect the ministry of the word of God in order to wait on tables. I like this. So they said, we should be more worried about the ministry over running a food program. So they get together in verse 3, brothers and sisters, choose 7 from among you. Choose 7 men from among you who are known to be full of the Spirit and full of wisdom, and we will turn this responsibility over to them. And then verse 4, and we'll give our attention to prayer and the ministry of the word. So I love this because what they realize here, they're starting to see the challenges of growth. Because for me, I'm a pastor here. And in the very, 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 very beginning, my role, I would do the printing. There's nothing else for me to do. So it's like, yeah, I'll do the printing. Sure, I'll help run this week. The sweeper was my house, so of course I ran the sweeper, I'll do the shopping, it was my house. But as you go on, we have to keep the main thing. The pastor is here for a purpose. He's a coach. And I love looking at this as the coach aspect because it is never the coach's job in a sport to score the basket. It's never the coach's job to throw the pitch. It's never the coach's job to hit the ball. It's never the coach's job to serve the ball. It's never the coach's job to, none of that. It's the coach's job to prepare those adequately to serve the ball. It's the coach's job to adequately prepare those to hit the ball, to rebound, to block out, to whatever, to run the play, so that the players get the glory, so that the players win the game, And so as we go through looking at this, I love this in verse 3, brothers and sisters, choose 7 from among you, and we will turn this responsibility of the feeding over to them. I love this because they don't look at the responsibility of the feeding and say it's not important. Maybe we should just get rid of it because it's kind of a pain. Maybe we should just get rid of it, put it on the back burner. We don't need to be that because we need to be doing these things. It says, no, we see the need. There's a need there. But I have to keep my eyes on making honey. We have to make sure that we are continuing to make honey so that we can continue to feed. So I love that. This is the first act of leadership right here, is leading people to lead. Find 4 amongst you that we can trust, that are full of wisdom, that are full of knowledge, that are respected. And so as we look at today, what we do, the apostles quickly learned that they needed to figure out how to lead people into service. This is how we get the job done. And I want to create a church. We want to create a church that serves like Jesus serves. This is the culture that we want to be, a church that together gets it done. That together gets it done. Look at the people around you. Can you just turn the lights on for just a second here, Potter? Is there a way to do that? It's a setting here. Hold on here. It's all on a computer, so that's good. Look at the people around you. Look at the people around you. I think sometimes we get so focused on up here, and I apologize for that. We get so focused up here. Look at the people around you. This place is almost full of people that together get the job done. How many of you in this room, in this place today, serve here in some capacity? In some capacity, raise your hand. I didn't mean to single out those that don't. I didn't mean that way. Got ya. Okay, turn the lights back off. Okay, if you did not raise your hand, the serving. No, I'm kidding. That just happened that way. I meant to celebrate. That's what I was doing. Gosh, I feel bad now. That was not the purpose of that. But my point in this is together we get it done. Together we get it done. That's the culture, not just the staff, not just me, not just the leadership, but together we make the honey. Together we bring the gospel. Together we share the gospel. Together, when we get together, when we serve together, everyone say that word, together, God wins. Together, God wins. But all of us together engaged in finding ourselves in God's plan. That's how God wins. And this goes far beyond the church world. It goes far beyond just this room. Anybody work in the real world? I've worked in the real world. You know what managers love? Managers love people with a heart to serve, with a vision to serve. I can promise you that your boss, your manager loves to see someone walk in that's asking for a job that has a willingness to serve the customer. That has a willingness to serve the customer. That has a willingness to look beyond themselves and put the customer first. To serve. What company, I'm just going to say it, what company is known for their amazing service? Some of them. Chick-fil-A, absolutely. Chick-fil-A. Isn't that amazing how across the board, no prompting, I guess it is a church. It is a church. It's like, oh, Chick-fil-A, they love Jesus. Therefore, they serve well. Me like chicken. Employers are looking for employees that have a servant mindset. How can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I help the customer? How can I help? How can I help the patient? That makes you indispensable. I love to see people coming with that heart as a pastor. Because I can tell you what I don't like to see as a pastor. Someone that kind of creeps in and is like, I want that job. Okay, well, that job's not available. Would you be willing to do this job? And sometimes when that happens, you get people who go, not interested. Okay. But just a willingness to serve. Just a willingness to come in and say, how does God win? Put me there. Put me there. I want to make honey. Whatever makes honey, put me there. Whatever makes honey, put me there. And I love the fact that we can come in here and make honey. That's what we do. It's not about someone that just comes in every week and says, hey, I want to be the person that stands right here and sings. I want to be the person that stands here and plays. I want to be the person that sits back there and does the tech. Those are great jobs. But what we need is someone that's willing to go and rock babies. What we need is someone that's willing to do some shopping. What we need is someone that's willing to, these aren't actually the jobs. I'm just stating facetiously. Sort of. But in this, it's ultimately the goal to get where you feel that you're serving, where you're called to serve. It's my job to empower you to utilize your gift better. So let's start with the first thing first. For us to get right out there, we have to look inwardly first. So as we talk about this servolution, Shane, we have to have our hearts geared where they need to be geared first. We don't need to look outside the doors and invite anybody else in until where we are where we need to be. You get what I'm saying with that? As a coach, you need to have an understanding of what you want to coach in order to coach well. As a teacher, you need to have an understanding of what you want to teach in order to teach. Us, before we look outwardly, we need to look at the inside first. We have to get right in here before we have anything to offer out there. So how do we do that? Let's look at 3 things that we can do. Number 1, recognize that I was created to serve. By I, that's us, not just like, okay, Shane was created to serve. Yes. No. Recognize that I was created to serve you. Everyone say that with me right now so we all physically say that about ourselves. Recognize that I was created to serve. Paul talks about this in his letter to the church at Ephesus, Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. I love the way it's also said in the New Living Translation. I love this one word. For we are God's masterpiece. Everyone say masterpiece. For we are God's masterpiece that he has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things that he's planned for us long ago. I love that. I'm God's masterpiece. You are God's masterpiece. And I think often we don't feel that way. I think so often we look at our lives and we feel that maybe God's mad at us. We feel that we don't qualify, that we don't measure up. We don't feel like we're God's masterpiece. Because think about that. When you create a masterpiece, or something that you feel is a masterpiece, man, my daughters, they create a masterpiece every week. They'll create something, they will create a masterpiece, and they want me to see it. Dad, look what I did. Dad, look what I did. Look what I did, Dad. It's excellent. Actually, not really excellent, but it's excellent. But when we have something that's a masterpiece, we're proud of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, my masterpiece, I love cooking. I love, like, my ribs. I'm like, oh, yeah, look at that. Look at those ribs. Don't you wish you had those ribs? Like, I'm okay with that. I'll brag about ribs. My masterpiece. What is that for you? Something that you're proud of in life. My whole point in saying this is this. When we have a masterpiece, we're proud of it. Something we're proud of. We are God's masterpiece. Something that he's proud of. Not just something like he's did. Like, you ever done something that, like, you ladies, you ever, like, made a cake and threw it away? I'm not taking that to the shower. We'll go to Sam's and pick up a bundt cake. That's not what we are to God. That's not what we are to God. We are his masterpiece. How do you think that God sees you? Let's go forward. God sees you as his creation. He created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things that he planned for us long ago. God knew that you before you existed, and he has a plan for you. Simply put, you have a purpose. You have skills and passions wired into you to serve others. And God doesn't look at us as if we owe him. God doesn't look at us as like, all right, you owe me. I gave you this. You owe me. God looks at that, man, with my daughters. I love to watch them play softball. And it brings me joy to see them use the gift that they have. I love to coach them. I love to see them apply something to the game that I've taught them. I love to see it. Libby's a little bit better at applying than Bella. I love to watch that, though. When she does something like, forever, we'll have to go through the steps. I'm like, all right, what do you do when you get in the batter's box? Set your feet, bend your legs a little bit, knuckle up, bat back, chin down, watch the ball. But I love that when I don't have to say that anymore. And she goes up there and she applies that and she uses that gift. She uses that. She has a purpose out there. And I love this because I think this is what some of us feel like. God created you to do something, and until you do what he created you to do, you will never find fulfillment. God created you to do something, and until you do what he created you to do, you will never find fulfillment because we look for fulfillment in so many places. But check this out. In him, no one rides the bench. So I said, me as the pastor, I'm a coach. Us as the people, we're the players. Anybody ever play sports? I played basketball in high school, believe it or not. And I was part of this thing. It was a special thing. I was part of this elite group of people on the basketball team that were known as the 30-30 Club. Anybody ever heard of the 30-30 Club? Probably not, because you weren't part of it, like I was. To be part of the 30-30 Club, you see action on the court when your team is up by 30 or down by 30. That was my role. We're getting our butts kicked. We're beyond the point of no return. Mun, get in there, you're in. We got this game locked away. No one can touch us. No one can screw it up. Mun, you're in. 30-30 Club. I did a lot of bench riding in high school in basketball, okay? Not football, but basketball. I was really good at this movement, not so good at this movement, I was really good at this movement, not so good at this movement. So anyway, God's created you to do something, and no one rides the bench. Jesus has no bench. Everyone plays. Number two, what can we do? Learn who God made you to be. Learn who God made you to be. 1 Corinthians 12, verses 4 through 8. There are different kinds of gifts. We all have different kinds of gifts. I love this. We all have different kinds of gifts. Thank God, thank God that you don't have to be able to sing to be used by God. Otherwise, we might as well go find something else to do, like we go do yard work on Sundays or something. I don't know. But we all have different kinds of gifts. It's not just about the things you see up here. It's not just about the things you see on Sunday. We all have different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in every one, it is the same God at work. This is a picture of the hive. This is a picture of the hive. There are different gifts. There are different jobs. But for the bees, it's the same queen that leads them. For us, God. So if we look at that, there are different kinds of gifts. When the Holy Spirit came inside of you, it came bearing gifts, and you are gifted in Him. Verse 7. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. Verse 8, there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another a message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit. So that's what's so cool about God, is you know what? God realizes that some of you have ADD. So maybe you don't have the same gift as somebody else. He gives you something that's more physical. Hey, I'm good with my hands. Keeps me active, engaged, busy. Some of you have the gift of prophecy. Some of you have the gift of generosity. Some of you have the gift of prayer. Some of you have the gift of hospitality. Maybe you don't have the gift of hospitality, but here's the thing. If you don't have the gift of hospitality, that doesn't mean you're not valuable. Because some of us, we can look at our life and you go, you know what? I don't really like to be around people. God can still use you. Someone's got to get the water. Someone's got to clean the church when no one's here. I don't know. What I'm just saying, whatever. We still have a gift. We still have a gift. So some of you take pictures. You work on vehicles. You fix meals. Amy Haskett. How do you take what you do and serve people with it? I love this. How do you take what you do and serve people with it? How do you give away what God has given you? How do you give away what God has given you? And I'm not just talking about tangible, physical, like I'll give away my TV. I'll give away my shirt. I'll give away my car. I'm not talking about that. How do you give away the gifts that God has given you? Find a need and do something about it. How do you give away the gifts that God has given to you? Believe it or not, for some of you, it is a quilt ministry. Weird, but I've seen, though, these amazing, I used to say that, so like, oh, it's so weird. But then I've heard about these people that have children that went to hospitals, and one of the things that they gave them was a quilt that they had made for their child. And all of a sudden, I saw the gift that the quilt ministry was. I used to look at it and be like, lame-o. But then I saw what that meant to the parents. I saw what that meant to that child, that gift of comfort. In the beginning, it wasn't my gift, so I looked at it and I didn't respect it. But when I saw the receiver of the gift, it changed my perspective. For some of you, it's cooking. For some of you, you can change oil. For some of you, you can mow lawns. For some of you, you can spend time with people. For some of you, I don't know. You can serve in the youth ministry, the children's ministry, the college ministry, the women's ministry, the men, whatever. There's no shortage of needs just in the church, and that's just in the walls. Beyond it, look at this. Some of you take pictures, do what you do. Out of necessity, there are things that just have to be done in this place: the vacuuming, the toilets, the mopping, the parking signs, the straightening of the chairs, copying, the shopping, all those things. There are acts of service like this that take place every week that make a difference in the kingdom, that make honey. That's part of the deal. Number 3, what can we do? What can we do? Begin to serve in our church family. I love this. Paul, in his letter to the church at Ephesus, Ephesians 4:15 and 16. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every aspect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. So through maturity, together we will become like Christ. Verse 16, from him, the whole body joined and held together by every supporting ligament grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Imagine what we could do as a church body if everybody joined in. Some of us are tired because we serve week in, week out, week in, week out, week in, week out, week in, week out, because there's a lack of serving. Now, as this little body of people, we have a lot that serve, but we need more. We need more just for the necessities. And then beyond that, this thing called Servolution. Imagine what would happen if everyone in the church body found a place to serve. What could be done? Think about our body. What would happen in our body if the liver didn't work? It didn't do its job. What would happen in our body if the lungs don't work? What happens? It dies. What happens if the heart doesn't work? The brain doesn't work. You're like, I have one of those. It's called a teenager. I love you, teens. I'm just kidding. Kind of. But in that, my whole point is this. What if our body, everyone found that place to serve, just serve somewhere? Take a test drive. Some of you may have no clue what you would be amazing at serving at. Some of you have no clue that you would be amazing serving in the kids ministry. Some of you have no clue that you would be amazing serving with our college students. Some of you have no clue yet that you would be amazing at serving with our student ministry. You have no clue that you'd be amazing at that because you haven't even tried it. Some of you know that you shouldn't serve in those areas, so I would encourage you, if you know that, don't serve in those areas. The whole point is this, though. Get out there. Here's what I do know. Nobody has ever found their place in God's plan by sitting back and doing nothing. No one has ever found their place in God's plan by sitting back and doing nothing. And here's the thing. I know we have jobs. I know that we're busy. Man, I'm busy. I coach my daughter's team. We've got men's ministry. We've got college ministry. We've got youth ministry. We've got ministry, just everything. Got a social life. I have a wife. I mean, we're all busy. We're all busy. But set that precedent. Set that precedent. Find your gift and use it. Or my favorite quote from the day. What can you do to give away what God has given you? What can you do to give away what God has given you? Hey, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you checking this video out online. If by chance you happen to make a decision today, I would love to hear about it. Please let me know by simply emailing me at shane@onechurchjoplin.org or even giving me a call at 417-438-6840. I'd love to hear your story and what's going on. Also, we'd love to invite you live with us next week. You can find us here Sundays at 9:30 or 11 a.m. at 2914 East 32nd Street. We're just across the street from Applebee's. When you come over, you'll see the guys hanging out outside. Come in, say hello, and find a friend here at One Church. We're glad you tuned in.